Okay, again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick note that when the webinar is over, we will have a survey window pop up. If you wouldn't mind filling that out for us and giving us some feedback on this webinar. We want to do our best to improve our services for you and the information that we provide. So if you could take a couple of minutes to fill that out, that would be great. I'm going to turn it over to our family support specialist, our family engagement specialist, Ms. Tina Norris.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today for this awesome webinar. You're in for a treat today. Right before we get started, just want to share really quickly, in case we have some new family members with us, just who PTSI is. PTSI is a statewide nonprofit whose passion is to empower families in Virginia. And our central focus is for families with children with disabilities. And we also have several outreach areas as well. We have Latino outreach, military outreach, family engagement, which I lead. We have transition and adulthood. We also do bullying prevention and early childhood. And so at this time, I'm going to bring forward our presenter, Dr. Zipporah Levi-Shackleford, and she's going to be talking and sharing today about helping your child with self-care and emotional coping. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and Zipporah, you can take it away.
All right, thank you, Tina. And before I get started, want again to thank PTSI for inviting me again to host another webinar. I always love working with PTSI, and I'm very excited to share this information with you guys today. This will be kind of moving a little bit faster pace because it's a half hour, but I do provide more in-depth discussions through webinars and live trainings. And can share that information with you. So in this half hour, some of the stuff that we'll be talking about is defining what emotional coping is. We'll talk about why self-care and emotional coping is important, especially for our children, how to help your child with learning how to be effective with emotional coping, and then how to help them learn self-care. Before I get into that, just want to let you know a little bit about my organization. So I am the founder of Creative Approach Development Center. I started it back in 2015, and we're located in Richmond, but we do offer online services as well. We provide the one-on-one behavior life coaching, which is using the positive behavior supports to help individuals ages 5 through adult develop new routines and skills to help them reach goals and develop independent lifestyles. We provide group workshops and trainings. We have different webinars and online courses. We provide inclusivity and teamwork consultations and training. And we focus heavily on mental health, intellectual and developmental disabilities, dual diagnoses, and then the leadership development. So that's just a little summary of what we do. So getting into this discussion, we'll start out by discussing why is learning about self-care and emotional coping important. And the reason why I like to cover this topic working with the population that I do is because most of my clients and students are in special education programs or in some kind of additional supports where there's a lot of focus on challenges and deficits, right? So it's a lot of talk about what the child has a hard time doing. And when there's so much focus from teachers and therapists and other providers, sometimes that can lead them to kind of view themselves in a very limited way. And that affects their ability to set goals and to be motivated to try new things and really utilize and recognize their full potential. Another reason why I wanted to cover this topic, especially now, is because we all know this school year was very challenging the way it ended, and there's a lot of question marks. We don't know how the upcoming school year will be, and it's highly likely that it will be even more challenging. So I think having this discussion during the summer months and kind of using this downtime to talk more about self-care and focus on that emotional coping will help the students be better prepared during the fall. And then there's a lot of other current events going on that's causing a lot of the negative energy and arguments. There are some feelings of anger, fear, and a lot of confusion. So again, the self-care and emotional coping skills will be very helpful in those areas as well. So when we talk about self-care, it's important to teach your child about it because it helps them recognize when they need a break, and then they know what to do to refresh and re-energize. So it's a good way to help them calm and then reset. And because of that, it decreases impulsivity, which often leads to making poor choices. The benefits of teaching emotional coping is that it helps with self-awareness, and that in itself improves academic performance and increases independence. And then it also helps with building and maintaining positive relationships, which is also important. Emotional coping is the term that I like to use. It's commonly known as emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. So if you look online, you may come across one of those two terminologies as well. And what it is it's the ability to manage your emotions in a positive way. And I like to remind everyone that that doesn't mean that you only have positive emotions. Because we're human and we are affected by our environment, there are times where you or your child will still experience the negative emotions, but the way that you react to the emotions are more positive. And being developed with emotional coping allows you to communicate more effectively. You're able to handle changes and transitioning and stress easier. You're able to have better relationships because you have more compassion for others and practice empathy, and then you're able to overcome the challenges and conflict easier. Emotional coping is made up of 4 parts or 4 skills. The first is self-awareness, then we have self-management, we have social awareness, and then the relationship management. So when all these different areas are developed, that's where we have our emotional coping skills and the ability to cope with our emotions. So self-awareness is the ability to not only recognize your emotions, but also recognize that your emotions affect how you think, how you respond, and your behavior. So when I'm working with my students, I often explain self-awareness as like a detective. It's a detective that your body has that allows you to investigate your emotions and then look at the clues of your behaviors and actions and then draw the conclusion, oh, I was really frustrated. And because I was frustrated, when mom asked me to load the dishwasher, it made me feel angry and I stomped into the kitchen. So it's like a detective that helps you kind of put those clues together to realize how your emotions affected your behaviors, okay? Self-management is the ability to control your emotions as well as the impulsive behaviors and thoughts, and it also helps you adapt to change. So with self-management, I like to compare this as a light switch. It's the ability to turn on and off, right? Your flow of response. And this is very important when there is change, especially unwanted change that leads to feelings like disappointment or frustration or even anxiety. It allows you to limit those by turning off that light switch so that you can still feel that emotion, but it's not to the level where you cannot process the information and then respond appropriately. Social awareness is the ability to have and show empathy, and it's understanding what others are feeling, their needs, their concerns, and their emotions, and it's also the ability to recognize social skills. And a lot of our kids and students that we work with and support, really struggle in this area because this is part of a social skill development. When I'm working with my students, I like to compare social awareness to a form of like your own personal form of Google Translate. So if you're not familiar with Google Translate, you can go to the site, type in a word, and select which language you want to translate it to, and it will automatically translate it. So with social awareness, it's your body's own version of Google Translate, because what you're doing is you're looking at those social cues, the person's facial expression, their body language, and you're plugging that in, and then it's spitting out the translation of what the person is feeling. So if the person is sitting, if it's your child, they may look at you and you're mad with them and you have your arms crossed and your face looks very serious. They're plugging in your facial expression and your body language, and that should spit out the information that mom is very frustrated right now or she's very serious right now. The same as if you're smiling and you call them in the room and you're smiling and I don't know, maybe taking the ice cream scoop out the drawer, putting that information, what you're doing, how you're looking, your body language, putting all those cues together to have it translate that mom's in a good mood, she's happy. So that's what social awareness is, and that's a skill that does take time to develop. Relationship management is the ability to communicate clearly and work as part of a team, and to be able to handle conflict. So this is the area that allows us to understand that in a relationship, whether it's a friendship level or a family level or on a team, it allows you to understand that there's like a give and take. And I like to compare this to a coach. Having this skill allows you to know when it's time for you to make a play in the relationship, whether responding to a statement or sharing something, or whether it's time for you to be more of a supportive player where you're listening to a friend or a sibling and receiving something like the game controller. So that's what these different areas do and how they contribute to the whole emotional coping. So now when we're trying to teach self-awareness, there are some strategies that I like to suggest. Number one is talking about emotions. But when you're talking about emotions, making sure that you're going beyond just, your typical descriptions of emotions like happy, sad, and mad, going a little bit deeper and using some of the other terminologies that are a little bit more descriptive and specific. So instead of happy, maybe excited or even content. Sad, can be disappointed or lonely. Mad can be frustrated or even anxious or annoyed. So making sure that you're using these other terminologies so that you're helping your child make the connection that there's a range of emotions and an intensity to the emotions. We all, especially with everything that's going on, there's been an increase in TV watching and reading. So pointing out the emotions of others during the TV shows and commercials and books, even with music, listening to the words of the song and talking about what emotions are being explained through words. So it's a good way to help your child to start to realize that other people have emotions, emotions change, and also to demonstrate how situations affect our emotions. And on our website, we have what we call the emotion bingo game, which is a sheet that you can print out and, you have a copy, your child has a copy, or you can work on it with them. And while you're watching the TV show, you're looking for these different emotions to see if you can get bingo. So it's just a fun way to help them kind of tune in to the fact that we all have emotions, our emotions change, and sometimes we display our emotions differently. So it helps also bring that to attention. When you're talking about emotions, discuss and point out the physical attributes to them. So I'm so excited. My stomach feels all fluttery, or I'm really sad, and my heart really feels sad. I'm so nervous, my hands are sweaty, or I can't stop shaking my leg because I feel nervous. So that kind of points out that emotions are not just these invisible feelings, but also they have a physical effect on us as well. Pinning the emotions to their reactions and responses to help them realize that emotions are something that we do without thinking. They occur throughout the day. So if your child does something that was kind of challenging and they figured it out, saying, wow, figuring that out must really have made you feel proud. Um, oh, I know that was really really frustrating for you. So helping them realize what they're feeling, because it's really hard to teach coping skills and coping strategies for different emotions if we don't even understand what it is that we're feeling. On that note, practicing self-reflection, and this is something that can be done verbally. That's probably the easiest way, and that's by just talking and asking questions. So with all the changes going on with COVID, there's a lot more of a waiting time. We have to do a lot more preparing to do different activities. And then there's some activities that we enjoy that we still can't do. So talking about that, how did it feel when you got to GameStop and you saw that the line was really long and we had to wait outside? You did a really good job handling that, but what were some of the things that you felt, as you got closer to the line, knowing that you were getting ready to buy your new game? How did you feel versus when you first got there and saw the line was out the door? So, using the verbal cues and prompts as a way to talk about emotions and how they change throughout the day and even throughout an experience. Journaling is great if that's something that your child would be into. And then even making a video or a vlog. We live in a video generation, lots of YouTube and TikToks and phones, and video and blogging is a really good way. And I like the vlogging piece because it can also provide the facial expressions and the body language too. So even if you take a quick picture of your child as they're showing these different emotions, and then later on you can point out, look at how your face looked when you were so happy that day. Look at your face. And that was a really tough day for you. You were really sad that day. Look at how your eyes look. Look at your facial expression and how it's different from when you were happy. So those are some ways that you can practice and teach some of the self-reflection. Making sure to take time to identify strengths and talents and discuss goals related to these strengths and talents is a way to increase that self-esteem, which is also important for self-awareness. Practice positive self-talk. Again, like I mentioned earlier, for children with a diagnosis, a disability, or a special need, there is often a lot of challenge on the limits and a lot of focus on the challenges and the limits and areas of weakness. So making sure that we're using time throughout the day to highlight the positives and the strengths. I love how you're always willing to help others. You are such a morning person. Getting up in the morning and getting going is really hard for me, but you're awesome at that. You're such a good listener. So pointing out these different positives and strengths also helps with that self-awareness and recognizing emotions as well as positive traits. Teaching positive phrases, it's really easy to talk about what we can't do and what we're not successful with, but making sure that you rephrase these statements so that they are more positive, because that helps your child, when they are faced with a challenge, see it in a more positive way. And then by utilizing the positive phrase, they're more likely to respond in a more positive way and be better able to cope with it. All right, so self-management. This is another tough area. One way to teach self-management is by playing games. especially those that require waiting or like a high risk. Like I love red light, green light, because you are really wanting to go as far as you can when the person has their back turned, but you have to practice some control, because if you are still moving when the person turns around, then you're out. So I love using red light, green light as a way to teach the value of having some of that control and some future planning. Chutes and ladders, that's one of my other favorites, because you know, 1 minute you're all the way at the top, the next minute you can slide all the way back to the beginning with the chute. So that's one of the ones that involves high risk. The same with Monopoly. 1 minute, you know, you're doing really well, you're buying everything on the board, and then the next minute, you know, you have to put some of your properties up for mortgage because you've run out of money. So that's another high risk. And it also helps with, you know, dealing with change and transitions, because as you play the game, the situation changes. Using checklists and schedules for daily tasks and activities. This is a good way to visually teach self-management, to teach that you have A, B, and C to do by this time. So you need to do some future planning and practice some self-management to make sure you get it all done on time. In addition to this, creating deadlines and using timers. Work on different projects that require more patience and requires putting things in order. For this, puzzles are awesome. I love puzzles. Something like building a house of cards or building something with popsicle sticks. It's something that you can visually see your progress, which makes you excited, but you still have to manage your emotions, because if you get too excited, they can all topple down. The game Jenga and Topple is great for that too. Baking, you know, you have to take your time with baking to make sure that you measure things right, and put things in the right order, as well as gardening. So these are some of the activities that I really recommend and utilize when teaching self-management. For social awareness, the favorite activity for me with this is volunteering. You know, you can do this in a couple of ways. There are plenty of organizations, especially now with everything that's going on, that are always looking for volunteers in different levels and in different ways. If going out to an organization to volunteer is not something that you're able to do, then doing some research and finding a group to make something for. An example of this would be maybe, you know, working to make cards for residents in a nursing home who, especially during this time, are not getting visitors, but getting something handmade in the mail will really make them feel good. And talking about that, and then, you know, doing that activity. Or organizing a drive or an event. And this can be for something that your child shows interest in and is passionate about. This can range from the common tasks like people donating and bringing food to you so that you can take it to the food bank, or it can be pet food for a animal shelter, or even, you know, donating blankets and sheets, old sheets and towels, so that it can go to the animal shelter. So again, using this time to kind of talk about how there's different situations in the world where certain groups are in need of supplies and resources, and how if you're in the position, you're able to give back to help. So that helps to teach that, you know, at different times in our life, we are fortunate to be in positions when we can give back, but then there's other times in our life where we may be in a situation where we need from others. And, you know, it helps to teach how we all can work together to help those in need. Point out situations that foster empathy during TV shows. So if a favorite character experiences a loss, or maybe fails a test, you know, talking about how that person may feel and what would you do in that situation to help them cope with that. Build a diversity library, and this can be books and videos. You know, you can go through YouTube and find videos related to different issues and causes that your child and your family are passionate about, and just watching them casually. I'm not saying that you have to like set a specific time and make it very rigorous every day, but just casually watching it and having some discussions helps teach about that social awareness. And then attending diverse events to learn about different groups and cultures is another great way to help your child understand that we all have different backgrounds and attributes that we should be aware of and respect. So let me check my time real quick. Oh my goodness. All right, so quickly, for teaching relationship management, participating in team and group activities. Again, if you have multiple children, this can be done like with chores, where you break down the chores into pieces and one child is responsible for one piece, and they each have to get theirs done so that the chore is completed all together. Playing games like telephone helps with communication, and different building challenges helps with teamwork. And then talking about compromise and working together on a project or an event. Quickly, for self-care, self-care is the act of reflecting on your emotions and then responding to them, giving you time to recharge and take a break. Self-care should be done throughout the day and at different times a day, at different levels and lengths, depending on the task and situation that your child has just been completed. This should be taught early in life so that it can be used as a natural coping technique. Making sure that for self-care, there's a variety of activities and tools. So self-care does not always have to be like going for a walk. It can be going for a walk, or it can be making a healthy snack, or it can be just sitting and listening to music. Having visuals and other prompts to remind them to use self-care as a coping strategy throughout their day. Some ideas for youth and teens: going on a walk or a run, playing a game. It can be a board game or video game. Reading books, and remembering graphic novels and comics do count as books. Doing a puzzle, and doing an arts and craft project if that's something that they enjoy doing. As a reminder, these activities should be able to be done independently, but it is okay for self-care to be done with someone else, but it should be something that they don't have to wait for mom or dad or older sibling or someone to help them with. They should be enjoyable and relaxing to them as parents. A lot of times we like to provide and share our ideas and input, but letting them have the choice of what self-care activities they want to participate in. Making sure it's something that's cost effective, so that cost does not prevent your child from engaging in their self-care activities, and making sure it's an activity that you limit so that it remains effective. You don't want self-care activities to be something that your child does all the time, because then it may not be as relaxing and refreshing when they do need it. And remembering that the best resource for teaching self-care and emotional coping is you. So make sure that you incorporate some emotional coping and self-care techniques and strategies in your day, because our children watch us and they imitate us. So if they see you naturally doing it, they're more likely to do it as well. And that is it. I know it went kind of fast, especially towards the end, but again, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Again, thank you so much, Pete, for inviting me to present on this topic. This is our social media info and our website. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions, and check out our website. We have lots of handouts and resources to help with these strategies. And I will turn it back over to Amanda and Tina.
All right. Well, thank you so much for providing all of this information for us. We are out of time, so if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at Peetsy, or you can reach out to her directly. And again, thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
All right. Bye.